There was nothing quite like bringing home a new PC game in that iconic oversized box. The art promised epic battles and a deep universe, and the weight of it in your hands hinted at the wealth of content inside. Then came the moment of opening it and finding that thick, glorious manual. It wasn't just a guide to the controls, it was a bona fide lore book detailing the history of the Terrans, Protoss, and Zerg. It was a strategy guide, offering tips on unit counters and build orders. It was a portal to the game's world before you even installed it, and an essential part of the experience. Of course, the installation process itself was a rite of passage, a final moment of anticipation before the game began. The slow, rhythmic hum of the CD-ROM drive, the whirring sound as it spun up to read the data, was the soundtrack to that wait. The installation bar, which seemed to move at a glacial pace, was something you'd watch with rapt attention, hoping for it to jump to the next percentage point. And then, the final sound, the click and whir as the drive finished its job and went silent. The moment you saw the installation complete message, you knew you were ready to enter the Copperloo sector. It was a testament to a time when games weren't just a quick download. They were a physical, tangible experience, and the time it took to get them running was part of the journey. The pre-rendered CGI cinematics of Starcraft were truly revolutionary for their time. They weren't just cutscenes, they were a window into a detailed, gritty science fiction universe. Seeing the Zerg for the first time was an unforgettable moment. The sheer, overwhelming tide of chitinous creatures, skittering and roaring as they swarmed over everything, perfectly captured the horror and unstoppable nature of their rush. It set the stage for the Terran struggle for survival against a seemingly limitless biological threat. On the other hand, the arrival of the Protoss fleet was a moment of awe. The sleek, almost ethereal design of their ships gliding through space, with the subtle hum and flash of their energy, established them as a technologically advanced and mysterious race. It felt grand and ancient, a stark contrast to the human and Zerg forces, and it immediately made you want to learn more about them. These cinematics were a masterclass in world building, and they were a huge part of what made Starcraft such a compelling experience. The sound design of Starcraft is absolutely a core part of its identity, instantly recognizable and a huge contributor to its unique personality. Every unit and action has a distinct auditory signature that is seared into the memory of anyone who played the game. Hearing the sharp, metallic thud of a siege tank transforming into its siege mode was a signal that a critical battle was about to begin. The guttural, chitinous skittering of a Zergling rush struck fear into the hearts of players, a sound that meant impending doom. The ethereal hum of a carrier's interceptors launching created a sense of awe and power. But perhaps the most iconic sounds are the unit voices and command prompts. Who can forget the gruff, often humorous lines of the Terran units, from the Firebats
Need a light?
to the battlecruisers commanding.
Battlecruiser operational.
The Protoss, with their dignified and almost stoic replies like,
My life for ire!
added to their mystique. The Zerg, with their piercing screeches and the Overlord's deep, resonant groans, were perfectly alien. And then, there are the legendary quotes from the computer itself.
You must construct additional pylons.
Became a meme before memes were a thing, a gentle but firm reminder of a strategic oversight. The equally famous,
You require more Vespene gas.
Not enough minerals.
became the mantra of resource management, a constant feedback loop that made the game's economy feel so tangible. These sounds weren't just functional, they were the voice of the game itself. The single-player campaigns of Starcraft were more than just a series of missions. They were an epic space opera that unfolded one mission at a time. The game's story, told through briefings, mission dialogue, and cinematics, was a huge reason for its enduring legacy. The Terran campaign put you in the boots of a young Jim Raynor, a marshal who quickly finds himself in a rebellion against the oppressive Terran Confederacy. The story's pivot was the introduction of Arcturus Mengsk, a charismatic but ruthless revolutionary leader. The central conflict of the Terran campaign came when Mengsk callously betrayed Raynor and his love interest, Sarah Kerrigan, to achieve his goals. The moment Mengsk used a psi emitter to lure the Zerg to a Terran colony, sacrificing its people to destroy his enemy, solidified him as a villain and forever changed the course of the story. The Zerg campaign was a chilling descent into the heart of the Swarm. This is where we witnessed the dark transformation of Sarah Kerrigan. After being abandoned and captured by the Zerg, she was reborn as the Queen of Blades, a terrifying, psionic-powered Zerg leader. Her cold, calculating demeanor and utter lack of remorse were a sharp contrast to her former self, and her voice acting perfectly captured her new, menacing persona. The campaign showcased the Zerg as more than just mindless creatures, but as a species with a guiding intellect and a sinister purpose. The Protoss campaign was a tale of ancient honor and desperate sacrifice. You played as Tassadar, an executor torn between tradition and necessity. He challenged the rigid beliefs of his people, the Protoss, by allying with the Dark Templar, a group of Protoss exiled for their different beliefs. The ultimate climax came when Tassadar sacrificed himself to destroy the Zerg overmind. His last words and the magnificent explosion of his ship, the Gantrather, were a noble end to a warrior who put the survival of his species above all else. This finale perfectly encapsulated the themes of honor, duty, and the tragic beauty of the Protoss. Now let's talk a bit about races, and how they are unique in their own way. Terrans perfectly embodied the spirit of the rugged, scrappy humans fighting for survival in a hostile galaxy. They were the underdogs, relying on sheer grit, versatile technology, and a well-drilled military to face off against two much more advanced races. The heart of the Terran army was the Marine/Medic combo. Individually, a Marine was a cheap, basic infantry unit. But when paired with a Medic, they became an incredibly durable and effective fighting force. The Medic's ability to heal biological units for free meant that a squad of Stimpack Marines could absorb immense damage and keep fighting, turning what should have been a suicide charge into a tide of concentrated firepower. This combo was the foundation of the Terran Bio style of play, and it made every engagement feel like a desperate tactical skirmish. Moving up the tech tree, you got the formidable siege tank. In its mobile form, it was a solid, if unspectacular, tank. But the moment you pressed O and watched it transform, deploying its massive shock cannon with a satisfying mechanical groan, it became a different beast entirely. In siege mode, the tank could rain down explosive shells from an incredible distance, completely locking down choke points and obliterating enemy armies before they could even get close. Mastering the art of the siege line was a fundamental skill for any aspiring Terran commander. But nothing inspired more awe and fear than the Terran battlecruiser and its Yamato cannon. This gargantuan capital ship was a symbol of ultimate power. While its laser batteries could take a while to chew through a target, the Yamato cannon was an instant game-changer. The moment you saw that little laser beam trace a line from the battlecruiser to an enemy building or key unit, a cold dread would settle in. The charged sound and the subsequent, cataclysmic blast that vaporized its target was a signal that your opponent had reached the pinnacle of Terran might and that the end was likely near. The Zerg are the epitome of the swarming, horrifying alien hive. Their identity is one of relentless expansion and biological terror. Unlike the Terrans and Protoss, who rely on fixed buildings to produce units, the Zerg's entire base is a living organism, and this fundamentally changed how they played. The most unique and critical Zerg mechanic was the creep. This pulsing, purple biomass would slowly spread from a hatchery, providing the Zerg with a home turf advantage. Units moved faster on the creep, allowing them to reposition and reinforce at a breakneck pace. This visual cue of the creep spreading across the map was a constant reminder of the Zerg's encroaching, viral presence. While Terran and Protoss players built a steady stream of units, the Zerg could unleash a sudden wave of overwhelming numbers. This was the essence of the Zergling rush. A player could save up resources, quickly mutate a swarm of cheap, fast-moving Zerglings, and send them charging across the map in a chaotic mass. The sound of 100 tiny skittering legs and high-pitched roars was the perfect soundtrack to panic as a player's initial defenses were instantly overrun by a tidal wave of chitin and claws. Later in the game, the Zerg's terrifying tactics evolved with units like the Lurker. The Lurker's ability to burrow and become completely invisible was a masterstroke of design. Once it was safely underground, it would unleash a spine attack that ripped through ground units in a straight line, making it a perfect ambush predator. There was nothing more terrifying than watching your ground army march across the map, only to have a Lurker pop up from the dirt and decimate your front line in a matter of seconds. The Protoss are the very definition of a high-tech psionic race. They embodied an elegant and powerful fighting style, relying on a small number of expensive but incredibly potent units. Every Protoss structure and unit felt purposeful, a piece of an ancient, advanced civilization's war machine. The face of the Protoss ground army was the Zealot. With their dual plasma blades and personal shields, these fanatical warriors were the embodiment of Protoss strength and honor. Though they were a melee unit in a game dominated by ranged combat, their sheer durability and ability to absorb damage made them a formidable frontline force. A phalanx of charging Zealots was a sight to behold, a blur of golden light and shimmering blades that could tear through enemy lines with shocking efficiency. The strategic cornerstone of the entire Protoss faction was the pylon. A pylon did more than just provide power. It was the nexus of all Protoss construction. Every single building, from a gateway to a stargate, had to be placed within a pylon's power field. This unique dependency made the pylon a critical strategic point and a favorite target for enemy raids. The famous command, "You must construct additional pylons," wasn't just a line of dialogue. It was the very foundation of Protoss macro management and a constant, often frustrating, puzzle to solve. But for sheer, game-changing power, nothing compared to the High Templar's psionic storm. This awe-inspiring ability was a late-game game-changer. The High Templar would gather psionic energy, and with a flash and a roar, unleash a swirling vortex of destructive energy upon a chosen area. The storm would tear through biological and mechanical units alike, melting Zerg hordes and frying Terran infantry in a matter of seconds. The chilling hum of a storm casting and the subsequent visual spectacle of its swirling energy was a clear sign that the Protoss had brought their full, devastating psionic might to bear. A single, well-placed psionic storm could instantly wipe out an entire army and turn the tide of a losing battle. Now let's remember the multiplayer and community that made this game become very popular. Battle.net was the heartbeat of the Starcraft experience. It wasn't just a matchmaking service. It was a digital community, a social hub that brought the world together over a shared love for the game. Logging on after a long day at school or work felt like stepping into a bustling public square. The chat channels were always alive with activity, players looking for a match, engaging in friendly trash talk, or just chatting about the latest tournaments. It was a place to find your friends, join a clan, or simply lurk and watch the conversations unfold. The feeling of logging in and seeing a dozen of your friends online was a promise of an epic night ahead. And for many, the pinnacle of the casual social experience was the After-School League, or ASL. It wasn't an official league, but a collective name for a group of friends who would log on every afternoon or evening to play together. The feeling of finding a group of friends in a chat room, setting up a custom game, and spending hours refining your build orders or just goofing off was a core memory for an entire generation of gamers. Battle.net made Starcraft more than just a game. It made it a shared digital world. A Starcraft LAN party was a beast all its own. Long before the days of high-speed internet, it was the only way to truly experience the chaos of multiplayer with your friends. The ritual of it was a core part of the experience. Lugging your massive CRT monitor and tower to a friend's house, a tangle of network cables snaking across the floor, and the hum of a half-dozen computers all running at once. There was a raw, visceral energy to it that online play simply couldn't replicate. The trash talk wasn't typed, it was shouted across the room. You could see the immediate, unfiltered reaction on your opponent's face as you executed a perfect Zergling rush or dropped a siege tank right on their front door. The oral landscape was a symphony of chaos. The frantic clicking of mice, the clatter of keyboards, and the mix of triumphant shouts and groans of defeat. The fun wasn't just in winning. It was in the camaraderie of the whole event. Watching your friends struggle, offering, or withholding, sarcastic advice, and feeling the tension in the room as a critical battle raged. It was a truly shared experience. A Starcraft LAN party was a testament to the game's brilliance and the power of shared fun. It was a digital game played in a physical space, and for many, those cramped, chaotic nights with friends were the absolute best way to experience the Copperloo sector. Starcraft wasn't just a game. It was the catalyst that ignited the modern esports phenomenon, and its ground zero was South Korea. The unique circumstances in South Korea in the late 1990s created the perfect environment for Starcraft to become a cultural phenomenon. The government was investing heavily in internet infrastructure, and a huge network of PC bangs provided a cheap and accessible way for young people to play the game together. Starcraft's perfect balance and high skill ceiling made it ideal for competitive play. Soon, what started as a hobby exploded into a professional industry. Leagues like the on-GameNet Star League and the NBC Game Starcraft League were created, featuring professional players who were treated like rock stars. Matches were broadcast on national television with dedicated commentators and huge audiences, filling massive stadiums for live finals. Players like Lim boxer Yo Hwan, who became a household name and an icon of the game's golden age, lived in team houses, trained full-time, and were sponsored by major corporations like SK Telecom. The level of dedication and support was unprecedented. The entire country embraced the game, not just as entertainment, but as a legitimate sport. Starcraft's dominance laid the blueprint for everything that followed in the esports world. The professional teams, the televised leagues, the celebrity players, the live events. It all started with a simple sci-fi real-time strategy game and the unyielding passion of a nation that took it to heart. In the end, what truly makes StarCraft a timeless classic isn't just one thing. It's the whole experience, from the moment you saw that iconic box art to the hum of the CD-ROM drive and the hours spent in the chat channels of Battle.net. It was the feeling of a well-played game, where your strategy came together and every unit served its purpose. The deep satisfaction of executing a perfect build order, knowing you were 3 steps ahead of your opponent. The adrenaline rush of a Zergling rush that paid off, or the pure tactical joy of a psionic storm that turned the tide of battle. StarCraft was more than a game. It was a phenomenon that defined an era of PC gaming. It proved that a game could be a sport, a community, and a work of art all at once. Even today, the clatter of a keyboard and the chorus of "you must construct additional pylons" can instantly transport you back. It's an enduring love for a game that wasn't just played, but lived. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. This will help the channel grow. And if you are a StarCraft fan, don't forget to share with us your first adventure in this game. This was me, and with all due respect, White Reaper out.